Zion J. Hargrove, an 18-year-old senior at Lincoln West High School, left his family's home in the Detroit Shoreway neighborhood at approximately 7:30 p.m. He told his mother, Clarissa Hargrove, that he was going out with his best friend, Tariq Wallace, a routine outing for the two who had been inseparable since middle school. Zion, known for his reliability and punctual nature, had a strict midnight curfew. By 11:45 p.m., when Clarissa still hadn't heard from her son, she began sending him text messages. In their neighborhood, Zion usually replied within minutes. That night, however, her messages went unread, and her calls went straight to voicemail. At 12:30 a.m., Clarissa reached out to Tariq. His story immediately raised red flags. He claimed they had gone to Edgewater Park, where Zion supposedly left his iPhone inside Tariq's Honda Civic while using the public restrooms. According to Tariq, Zion then inexplicably walked off without his phone, behavior completely out of character for someone who kept constant contact with his mother. Using the Find My iPhone app, Clarissa tracked the device's location. The signal showed movement from their neighborhood, past their house, and finally stopping at Tariq's residence at 1:15 a.m. When she arrived, Tariq's dark blue Honda Civic sat in the driveway, but repeated knocks went unanswered at the darkened home. At 1:45 a.m., she contacted the Cleveland Police Department. Officer Daniels filed a missing person report, noting Zion's description: 5 feet 11 inches, 165 pounds, wearing a gray Nike hoodie, black jeans, and white Air Force Ones. Police launched a search operation centered around Edgewater Park and the surrounding areas. Over the next 3 days, the Missing Persons Unit, joined by local volunteers, combed the grounds. News stations covered the case, and residents plastered flyers across Detroit's Shoreway and Edgewater neighborhoods. On September 13, 2020, at approximately 8:45 a.m., a park maintenance worker found Zion's body in the eastern section of Edgewater Park's lower lake. The Cuyahoga County Medical Examiner's Office initially ruled the death an accidental drowning, noting no obvious signs of external trauma. But as investigators soon learned, the circumstances surrounding Zion Hargrove's death were far darker than they appeared. A meticulous investigation would peel back layers of deception, revealing that what seemed like a tragic accident was, in fact, a carefully concealed crime. This case would expose how a seemingly innocent social media connection spiraled into fatal consequences, forever altering lives in this tight-knit Cleveland community. Detectives soon realized that several individuals knew more about the events of that night than they admitted. Eventually, the truth would lead to arrests and convictions, giving Zion's family and community a measure of closure. Early interviews with Zion's classmates painted him as a well-liked teen with no known enemies. He was active on the debate team, worked part-time at a neighborhood grocery store, and had never missed a shift without notice. Still, the investigation uncovered that multiple witnesses had key information, but were initially silent out of fear or loyalty. As digital evidence surfaced, texts, calls, and social media messages, a different picture that night began to take shape. This prompted investigators to question the drowning ruling and dig deeper into Zion's final hours. Skepticism about the initial conclusion was fueled by Zion's background. Growing up near Lake Erie, he was a skilled swimmer who had taken lessons since age 4, regularly swam at the local rec center, and even worked as a junior lifeguard in the summers. The idea that he would drown in 6 feet of water seemed improbable. A detailed autopsy revealed inconsistencies. While there were no major injuries, the medical examiner noted unusual bruising on Zion's shoulders and upper arms, possibly from restraint. Toxicology came back clean, ruling out drugs or alcohol. Meanwhile, Tariq Wallace's account shifted repeatedly. First, he claimed Zion walked away upset after receiving a text message. 2 days later, he said Zion had told him he needed space to think. After the body was found, he added a new detail: that Zion had gotten a disturbing phone call before disappearing. The Wallace family's behavior was equally suspicious. Despite years of close friendship between the boys, they skipped the funeral, ignored Clarissa's attempts at contact, and transferred Tariq to another school shortly afterward. Witnesses then came forward contradicting Tariq's story. Several park-goers saw at least 4 people with Zion near the lake that night, not just him and Tariq. A student overheard Tariq in the school bathroom telling another boy, "Things are out of hand," and "it was never supposed to happen." Further suspicion arose when Zion's wallet, containing his ID and cash, was found under a park bench, 30 feet from where his body was discovered. The find cast doubt on robbery as a motive and suggested a different sequence of events. Despite mounting evidence, law enforcement initially resisted reopening the case, citing the medical examiner's ruling and lack of definitive proof. But Clarissa's determination only grew. The community rallied, creating social media campaigns and pressuring officials for answers. The breakthrough came when a nearby security guard reported unusual activity the night Zion vanished. His account would later prove crucial in piecing together the real timeline. Around the same time, classmates began revealing tensions between certain students and Zion in the weeks leading up to his death. As pressure mounted and new evidence surfaced, it became increasingly clear that the original investigation had missed vital details. The case was eventually reopened, sending investigators down a path that would expose a tangled web of relationships and motives surrounding Zion Hargrove's death. The turning point came when Clarissa Hargrove began combing through her son's digital communications. Working with a private investigator, she obtained detailed phone records and data from Zion's devices, uncovering major discrepancies in the official timeline. The phone log showed activity up until 11:45 p.m. on September 10th, contradicting Tariq Wallace's claim that Zion had abandoned his phone earlier that night. GPS data traced the device's movement from Edgewater Park directly toward Tariq's home, indicating the phone had likely stayed in Tariq's vehicle, not left behind at the park as he had claimed. A major breakthrough came from Zion's Telegram messages. The investigator recovered a conversation with an unidentified user whose account had since been deleted. The exchange, between 6:15 p.m. and 7:20 p.m. on the night he vanished, outlined plans for a meeting at Edgewater Park. The tone of the messages was unusually secretive and urgent for Zion, ending with, "Meet at 9, same spot." The timing matched perfectly with Zion's departure from home, suggesting the meeting was planned in advance rather than spontaneous, as Tariq insisted. Further analysis of Zion's social media revealed subtle changes in his relationship with Tariq in the weeks before his death. Their once frequent interactions had sharply declined, and several mutual friends noticed visible tension between them at school. Screenshots from group chats showed Tariq becoming increasingly confrontational over minor disagreements. Marcus Thompson, a former classmate, gave pivotal testimony about Tariq's behavior after Zion's disappearance. He described seeing Tariq visibly agitated at school, constantly checking his phone, pacing, and appearing distracted. In one telling moment in the cafeteria, Thompson overheard him muttering, "It's gone too far." What they find out? Additional evidence surfaced from Zion's cloud storage. Screenshots of text messages with contacts saved only as MB. These messages, dating back weeks, hinted at a private relationship Zion had kept hidden from most people. The investigation also noted suspicious activity on Tariq's social media. Hours after Zion went missing, he deleted numerous photos of the two together, scrubbed comments, and even removed shared posts, an aggressive cleanup that took place between midnight and 2 a.m. on September 11th, while Zion was still officially considered missing. Several Lincoln West students came forward with screenshots of now-deleted posts showing Tariq's increasingly erratic online behavior before and after Zion's death. The posts were cryptic, but hinted at conflict and knowledge he hadn't shared with police. Despite the growing pile of digital evidence suggesting planning and deceit, law enforcement initially held firm on the accidental drowning theory. They argued that without physical proof, online communications weren't enough to reopen the case. But the digital trail was painting an undeniable picture, a timeline and set of relationships that would eventually lead to the truth. Meanwhile, Zion's death created deep divides in the Cleveland community. Some backed Clarissa's fight for justice, while others clung to the official ruling. Tariq's behavior only drew more suspicion. He withdrew from all school activities, including the debate team he once shared with Zion, and erased his entire online presence. His family issued a brief statement through their attorney, insisting on his innocence and requesting privacy. New witness accounts soon emerged. A basketball team member reported seeing Tariq in a heated argument with an unknown woman in the school parking lot 2 days before Zion's death. Another student recalled Tariq making a series of tense phone calls during lunch, speaking in low tones while scanning the room. The investigation took another sharp turn when Maria Rodriguez, a convenience store clerk near Edgewater Park, came forward. She remembered seeing not just two teens that night, but a car with at least one more person inside. Her description, a dark sedan with a noticeable scratch on the passenger side, would later prove critical. Community members began holding vigils and protests, demanding a deeper investigation. During one gathering, a former neighbor of the Wallaces described suspicious activity at their home on September 10th. Multiple cars coming and going between midnight and 2 a.m., with people speaking in urgent, hushed tones. Clarissa's persistence began paying off. Her TV appearances, where she laid out the inconsistencies in the official story, resonated with viewers. She highlighted the suspicious phone activity, Tariq's conflicting statements, and the inexplicable behavior of those closest to her son. The pressure escalated when several of Zion's classmates released screenshots of deleted posts hinting at jealousy, rivalry, and secret connections that had never been investigated. The case reached a boiling point when an anonymous source contacted Clarissa, claiming to know about a romantic entanglement between Zion and an older woman. The source alleged they had seen messages between the two, messages that were deliberately hidden from friends and family. This revelation forced investigators to reconsider the case from a fresh perspective, uncovering patterns of deception and manipulation that had gone unnoticed. As criticism mounted, the Cleveland Police Department's Internal Affairs Division launched a review of the initial handling of the case, examining why key witness statements were ignored and why digital evidence hadn't been pursued earlier. Finally, cracks began to form in the wall of silence. People who had refused to talk before started reaching out to Clarissa, each adding a piece to the puzzle of that September night. The true breakthrough came when a student who had kept quiet for months told her about the older woman Zion had met online, a revelation that would blow the investigation wide open and expose the dark undercurrents beneath his death. The community's persistent demand for answers, combined with new witness statements and digital evidence, eventually forced authorities to acknowledge that Zion J. Hargrove's death warranted a deeper investigation. The truth about what happened that September night would prove far more complex than anyone had imagined. 6 months after Zion's death, the investigation reached a turning point when Marcus Thompson, a senior at Lincoln West High School, approached the Cleveland Police Department with crucial information. Burdened by guilt, Marcus revealed that on September 10th, just hours before his disappearance, Zion had confided in him about plans to meet an older woman named Naima at Edgewater Park that evening. This revelation prompted investigators to bring Tariq Wallace back in for another round of questioning. After hours of interrogation, confronted with mounting evidence and witness accounts, Tariq's carefully constructed story finally collapsed. He provided a full confession, revealing the tragic chain of events that led to Zion's death. According to Tariq's statement, he had agreed to drive Zion to Edgewater Park for what he believed would be a brief meeting. Zion had been exchanging messages with Naima Benton, a 30-year-old married woman, for several weeks after meeting her on a dating app. Their relationship had escalated quickly, with daily communication and multiple secret meetings. That night, when they arrived at the park, Zion spotted Naima waiting near the lake. As he approached her, Curtis Benton, her husband, suddenly emerged from behind nearby trees. Suspicious of his wife's behavior, Curtis had followed her there. Upon seeing Zion kiss Naima, Curtis flew into a violent rage. The confrontation escalated quickly. Curtis, a former college athlete, overpowered Zion and dragged him toward the water. Despite Zion's desperate attempts to fight back, Curtis forced him beneath the surface and held him there until he stopped moving. Tariq, frozen by fear and shock, witnessed the entire ordeal. Before leaving, Curtis threatened to harm him if he ever spoke about what he had seen. Following Tariq's confession, investigators secured a court order to access Zion's dating app accounts. The review revealed extensive communication between Zion and Naima, including arrangements for the meeting at the park. The messages painted a picture of a rapidly intensifying relationship, with Naima frequently initiating contact and suggesting where they should meet. Police quickly identified Naima Benton through database and social media searches. She and Curtis were located at their home and arrested without resistance. During questioning, Naima admitted to the relationship, but denied knowing her husband intended violence. A search of the Bentons' home uncovered deleted messages from Naima's devices, showing she'd been aware of Curtis's suspicions, yet continued seeing Zion regardless. The investigation also revealed Curtis's history of domestic incidents, though none had led to formal charges. Surveillance footage from businesses near Edgewater Park corroborated Tariq's account, showing several vehicles arriving and leaving around the time of the incident, aligning with the timeline he described. The district attorney's office moved quickly. Curtis Benton was charged with second-degree murder, facing 25 years to life. Naima Benton was charged with obstruction of justice and accessory after the fact for helping conceal information. In exchange for his testimony, Tariq Wallace was granted immunity, his confession proving instrumental in breaking the case. The news sent shockwaves through Cleveland, especially at Lincoln West High School, where students and staff struggled to process the circumstances surrounding Zion's death. The trial began in spring 2021, attracting significant media coverage across Ohio due to its tragic elements: an 18-year-old high school senior's relationship with a married woman, a jealous husband's violence, and months of deception. District Attorney Sarah Morrison presented a meticulous case against the Bentons. Tariq Wallace, the prosecution's key witness, testified in detail about the events of September 10, 2020, describing how he helplessly watched Curtis drag Zion into the lake and hold him underwater. The jury appeared visibly shaken as Tariq recounted Zion's final moments and the threats that kept him silent. Forensic evidence strengthened the case. Analysis of lakebed sediment matched disturbance patterns to Tariq's description of the struggle. The medical examiner revised the initial drowning ruling, noting signs of forced submersion and defensive wounds previously overlooked. Digital evidence further established premeditation. Hundreds of messages between Zion and Naima revealed their growing connection, while records showed Curtis had installed tracking software on Naima's phone weeks earlier, suggesting he planned a confrontation. Naima's testimony against her husband added another twist. She admitted pursuing the relationship despite its inappropriateness, but claimed she never believed Curtis would commit murder. She described his controlling behavior, though prosecutors showed she had actively concealed evidence after Zion's death. Curtis's defense team tried to frame the killing as an unplanned crime of passion, claiming he acted in a moment of emotional shock. However, evidence that he had followed Naima to the park and lain in wait undercut that argument. After 2 weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for just 6 hours before finding Curtis Benton guilty of second-degree murder. Judge Robert Marshall, citing his lack of remorse and premeditation, sentenced him to 35 years in prison. Naima Benton received 5 years for obstruction and accessory after the fact. For Clarissa Hargrove, the convictions offered some closure, but could never replace the loss of her son. In a powerful victim impact statement, she spoke of Zion's dreams of attending college and studying business management. She addressed both defendants directly, telling them their actions had destroyed not just one life, but impacted an entire community. In the wake of the trial, new protocols were introduced to strengthen missing person investigations, especially in cases involving active social media use or unusual digital activity. Edgewater Park saw upgrades in lighting and security cameras, and the community established the Zion J. Hargrove Memorial Scholarship at Lincoln West High School, awarded each year to a student excelling in debate, the activity Zion had loved most. Naima Benton is currently serving a 5-year sentence at the Ohio Reformatory for Women in Marysville, the state's primary correctional facility for female offenders. Following her conviction in 2021, she was assigned inmate number #W139785 and placed in the medium security wing of the institution. Established in 1916, the prison houses roughly 2,000 women. Naima shares a cell block with other nonviolent offenders. Under facility regulations, she is permitted 2 3-hour visitation periods each month, may place monitored phone calls, and has access to basic educational programs. Because of her cooperation in the case against her husband and her classification as a nonviolent offender, Naima was assigned to work in the prison's administrative office. Her daily routine consists of work duties from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., with evenings reserved for mandatory counseling sessions and educational courses. Under Ohio state law, she will be eligible for parole after serving half of her sentence, provided she maintains good behavior and completes all required rehabilitation programs. Her earliest possible release date is projected for late 2023, though this is dependent on her conduct and other institutional factors. According to facility records, Naima has had no major disciplinary issues since entering the prison. She shares her living quarters with 3 other inmates in a standard cell block equipped with basic amenities, in line with state correctional guidelines. For those who knew Zion J. Hargrove, the lake where he lost his life has become almost sacred ground, and though justice was ultimately served, the echoes of that September night continue to ripple through the lives of everyone touched by it, leaving a permanent scar on the Cleveland community. If this story moved you, there's so much more to uncover. Subscribe now to never miss the drama, the emotion, and the untold truths. Join the journey. Hit that button and be part of the next stories. This is Ruthless Realities. Until next time.